Hello,
Good
Gary.
evening, Mr. Prime Minister.
Pleasure to see you.
Absolute privilege. Thanks for having us.
Oh, thanks for
Appreciate
coming
you doing
in.
that.
Please.
Great.
Have
Thank
a
you.
seat. Welcome to the Prime Minister's office.
Thank you. It's an absolute, just a joy to be here and such a huge opportunity. So again, thank you for doing that. I mean, it's just unprecedented, actually.
Well, listen, I only get to be good at my job if I'm listening to the people who I'm supposed to be serving.
Yeah, well, listen, I got a couple of items that I'd like to speak with you
Sure.
on. I want to make sure I cover them both as well. So two things that I want to speak to you about. And again, so first off, in your election platform and the new tax regime that went live January 1, I really admire the tax cut to the middle class. I mean, I think that was so needed, and I think it's going to make a big difference to a lot of Canadians. My concern is that, you went the other way with the actual one percenters or the top income earners in Canada. And, as someone who's been incredibly fortunate, we have 4,800 Canadians that we employ in this country. It makes it very difficult for us to continue to grow and to expand. And, when I sort of look at all of those top earners in Canada, most of them are small businesses and medium businesses, and a vast majority of Canadians in the private sector work for these small and medium-sized businesses. And I know it's happened twice before. Once is in 2011 in the UK, they increased the top rate tax, and it was a devastating, catastrophic event. They actually reversed that inside of 12 months, and they spoke about it again in Quebec in 2012 in the provincial election, and they rolled that one back as well. And the reason why they rolled it back is because they realized that the unintended consequence was that they actually collected a lot less tax, and it was very taxing on the rest of the economy. So my question to you, when so many of Canadians are small and medium-sized business owners, and they're trying to do great things and help you broaden the tax base in this country, and they're trying to grow and add, more jobs to the average Canadian, to employ our neighbors and our families and their kids, how does increasing the tax rate to, in some cases, 57, 58% between the federal rate and the provincial rate, how does that stimulate the economy, and how does that make me and give me a incentive to continue to grow, keep top talent, and hire more people?
Well, I think it comes down to how you define a strong economy. And one of the ways I define a strong economy is the largest number of good jobs for the largest number of people. I mean, that's really what we want to have. One of the things we've seen over the past 30 years or so is that middle class incomes have stalled. Median household income in this country has risen very little over 30 years, and yet the cost of living in real terms has increased massively. So people haven't had a real raise in a generation.
Right.
And that's where one of the real concerns we see in our economy is people are worried that the middle class just isn't getting ahead. That for the first time, perhaps in a generation, perhaps in history, there's a sense that the next generation of young people coming up aren't going to have better quality of life or better opportunities than the last
So
one.
I understand that, and I get that.
So what we chose to do is lower taxes for the middle class, lower taxes for that second income bracket from $45,000 to $89,000, so that as of January 1st, a few weeks ago, a whole bunch of people got a little bit more money in their paychecks.
Right.
In order to compensate for that, we're asking the people who make more than $200,000 in personal income to pay a little bit more in tax.
So the one thing I'd love to see you and see your government be mindful of is those people who make more than $200,000. It isn't the fat cat, the bureaucrat that you're thinking is sitting in the corner office. It's small business Canadians that have built these businesses and have grown and have employed people, and we want to stimulate the economy and help you stimulate the economy to broaden your tax base. But how do we do that when all of a sudden, as a business owner, our personal tax rate is 55, 58%. We have an increase in the dividend tax rate. We have an increase in the capital gains tax rate. I'm trying to keep top talent. I'm losing top talent to the U.S. right now. The Canadian dollar is not helping us. And then all of a sudden, I'm expected to continue to grow. I mean, there's only so much money. We can do all kinds of business and employ 4,800 Canadians. But if so much of it is going to Ottawa here to support these systems, if the actual people who are employing Canadians are being taxed to death, how are we to continue to drive the economy and help you? And really, all we want to do is continue to grow and hire more Canadians and help you with your
I agree entirely, and that's where you're blending personal taxes and business taxes a little bit. On corporate taxes, we're keeping them low, we're keeping them competitive, we're not touching them like the NDP said.
Absolutely.
We're actually lowering taxes for small businesses down to 9% as well. So that's going to make sure that we're giving incentives to people to continue to grow and continue to hire.
Right.
But it's not just about the redistribution, and everyone looks at the redistribution. Oh, you're taking money from the wealthiest so you can give it to the middle class, and is that?
I mean, it's kind of like Robin Hood and Sherwood Forest, right? You're not Robin Hood, and the country's not Sherwood Forest.
But that's only a piece of it, and only one way of looking at it. The other way of looking at it is this country does well when middle class people have money in their pockets to spend, to grow, to invest. And putting more money in the pockets of those folks who need it is actually going to have a benefit in terms of your consumers, in terms of the solidity of your workforce. And I think you're doing a really good job of
that, so thank you for that, right? I just wanted you to recognize the other end of it, that employees. So the second issue that I want to get to, if we could. So I'm in the mortgage business. We run the largest mortgage company in the country, and the Canadian housing market has been the bright spot of the economy for 10 years now. And I understand that you just came in, and there's so much of what you're doing. We really appreciate, and I see very positive things coming down. There's been a lot of changes, and there's been a lot of tightening of the mortgage guidelines. And I wanted to just sort of speak to you from our perspective that household debt in Canada isn't the problem. People are paying their mortgage payments in Canada. 92% of all Canadians say that they can afford a price increase, an interest rate increase. We have the lowest default rates in anywhere in the Western world right now. I mean, our default rate on mortgages is less than 1/3 of 1%. The biggest issue and the biggest challenge that I see in this country right now, and the one area that I believe that you can really, really help with, is regulating credit card debt. So I look at 350,000 mortgage applications per year from Canadians in this country, and they aren't refinancing their mortgages, to go out and use it as an ATM and go on a spending spree. Yeah. They're using it to refinance high interest, unsecured credit card debt that they have in their pockets, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20% interest. They're getting buried by it. And there's no regulation, there's no oversight. If you've looked at a credit card payment or statement these days, if you make the minimum payment, it takes you 125 years to pay off, your credit card. But what happens is that there's such easy access, there's no qualification standards. Canadians are getting absolutely buried, strangled in credit card debt, and it's the one area that no government has actually focused on. And you could actually leave your DNA in this country. You could make such an impact just by shoring up that one area. Because to tell you a story, my son, when he was 19 years old, only a couple years ago, he was working part-time in a restaurant. He was a busboy, and he went out with no cosigner and got 2 credit cards. He had more than $4,000 of credit available to him at 19, 20%. Well, if he went out like so many Canadians do and charged up that credit card, this kid's never getting out of debt. Yeah. So my question is there any thought, have you guys had any conversations about regulating the credit card and the unsecured debt, the auto, finance? I can go out today and I can get a loan for my car. I can get a loan for my bed, for my holiday. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Well, just, you highlight the challenge of household debt and personal debt. The Canadians are at a very high level of indebtedness, and you're right. It's non-mortgage household debt is up over $28,000 for average Canadians. If not, it's even higher, and that was a few years more. A lot of it's credit card. We need to make sure that the economy is growing, that people have a level of financial literacy, that yes, we're working with banks and making sure that regulations are in place that'll keep Canadians safe. But the biggest one is we need to create opportunity to grow the economy in a responsible way, get people into good jobs, get people the financial literacy needed to know that you can't borrow now and hope that you're going to be okay later. And one of the things when you compare how we went through the worldwide recession in 2008 and 9 versus other countries is Canadians didn't slow down their spending. They continue to remain confident because it didn't hit us as hard in some senses. But that means we're now carrying more debt than the United States and elsewhere. And I'm really worried about household debt in this country. And we need to work to make sure that we're giving people a way way out of that path.
And I'm thrilled that you recognize that, because you're 100% bang on, and this is something that you adopted and walked into. But, just as someone who actually looks at Canadian debt every single day, we have 700 offices across the country, and we see it, and it is absolutely the number one factor why, Canadians are struggling right now. It's that high interest unsecured credit card debt, high interest unsecured debt, in general. It isn't the home. We're in a wonderful place. We have the strongest housing market in the world.
Yeah. Well, there's challenges, and the Vancouver housing market, the Toronto housing market are putting forward particular challenges that have a number of people worried. But at the same time, I'm very, very confident about how Canadians are at being able to get through this challenge and through these challenging times. But we need to make sure that we have governments and businesses that are there to give them the opportunities and the good jobs we need.
Absolutely incredible. Thank you.
Listen,
when it's when you get around to doing that reno on 24 Sussex, I'll give you the lowest mortgage rate in the country. Save you lots of money.
Thanks, Gary.
Real pleasure.